Hello from Dalton, Georgia. I am here. I've made it up to Dalton. This on the Chase, this is the original depot. This depot from 1850s is now a restaurant, which is kind of cool. The Dalton Depot restaurant. I've been in it a couple years ago. It's pretty cool on the inside. And here we have our historic Great Locomotive Chase sesquicentennial sign that a lot of places seem to have. And we're gonna walk around and see what we can see if there's any other markers for the Locomotive Chase. Kind of running against time now, trying to get in a couple more stops before the sun goes down. I want to make it at least a Ringgold so we can finish the chase. I'd hate to just leave us all hanging. I'm gonna walk over here. I don't know, this is looks kind of closed. Well, I mean, more closed than like quarantine closed. Okay, I see train tracks. So here we are. This is cool. This looks like an old railroad building here. But yeah, that does not look like anything that is being interpreted as the history of the Great Locomotive Chase. Got some old bricks in here though. That's pretty cool. Old brick walkway. I don't know if that's original or it's old anyways. Next to a parking deck. And down the line there is a freight depot as well. It's kind of cool again with just locomotive history if you're into that. Some of these stops are really cool just for that. They seem to have their own murals. You notice I see a peacock way over there, just like in Marietta. We got our beautiful murals. And I'm gonna find a spot that's not too windy. Talk about Dalton. So Dalton was the next big city up the line after Marietta. All the other stops were relatively small as far as towns go. But Dalton was pretty booming at that time in 1862. So here again, I've got my Stealing the General by Russ Bonds. Read a little bit for you. All right. It's a cool little town. It's bigger than Calhoun, bigger than Adairsville, it's definitely bigger than Kingston. Still got a lot going on, a lot of side streets. Actually, almost bigger than Marietta Square, at least the historic part of Dalton seems to be preserved pretty well. So, now, just ahead for the two rival engines was the important junction town of Dalton, the largest city on the line north of Marietta. Formerly a tiny mountain hamlet known first as Frog Level, then as Cross Plains, Dalton had been established in 1847. Its limits defined as a 1-mile radius from its new geographic, economic, and social center, the depot of the Western Atlantic Railroad. Right behind me here. This was the center of town. Okay. Now, James Andrews seems to give little consideration to the suggestions that his Union boys stop and fight it out. I don't remember who suggested that. And this may have been in part because he was preoccupied with getting past the tangle of branches, switches, and sidings at Dalton. The junction up ahead posed a number of potential problems. First, they would have to slow or stop their train completely to check the switch ahead to be sure that it was set for the left-hand fork to the W&A and not the right to the East Tennessee and Georgia Railroad. It's getting complicated. They could hardly afford to make a wrong turn at this stage in the proceedings. Second, the tracks in Dalton actually ran through the passenger shed before passing a maintenance building and a turntable and then diving off to the left coming out of the station. I got a loud train coming up. So this was a dangerous stretch to run at high speed. Finally, as at Kingston earlier that morning, the junction might well be crowded with cars, passengers, crews, and extra trains, but the Yankees would have no time, this time, for any explanations or delays. Oh yeah, we got a big train coming up. Might get loud. I'll pause if it does. Let's see if you can see it coming up along the way there. Ah, there he is. Yeah. Bringing all that Amazon goodness to us folks at home. Oh, it's going to get loud, I believe. Just like back home in Marietta. Let's let that engine pass. Take a look at downtown area. It's kind of quiet right now. Up ahead I see another peacock. I wonder what that's all about. They're big into peacocks. Okay. The engine has passed. It's quiet for now. So, Raiders Knight and Brown stopped the General a few hundred feet short of the depot at Dalton. So, this train that I just saw is heading south, I believe. Am I turned around? Yeah. It's heading south. So, that direction. So, they stopped the General a few hundred feet short of the depot at Dalton. Andrews dismounted and ran forward to check the switch and track ahead. He was back in an exceedingly short time and offered a clipped and stern explanation as the train again lurched forward and picked up speed. "I'm running this train through the Corinth, and I have no time to spare," he called out over the loud chuffs of the engine. It's like I planned this. Numerous sidings split off from the main line right and left, and the double tracks, one for the W&A, the other branching off to the East Tennessee and Georgia line, ran side by side under the peaked roof of the passenger shelter up ahead. The train, consisting by now of only one engine, tender, and single boxcar, the latter almost ripped to shreds front and rear by its inhabitants, rushed with frightful speed under the roof, still accelerating, much to the astonishment of the passengers crowded in the pavilion to escape the falling rain. Oh, it was raining. Watching as the General came barreling headlong through the station, one nearby railroad man remarked that the superintendent would surely discharge the train's engineer if he saw him running like that. Andrews being reckless. The rails ahead curved sharply to the left as the abbreviated train darted out of the partial darkness of the shed. The bend so tight and sudden that, for an instant, William Knight thought the tracks came to an end and that he had mistakenly taken a dead-end siding. The engineer vividly recalled his fright more than 40 years later, telling a visitor that a terrible sensation was his when the engine shot around a sharp curve. He could see no track ahead, and that sudden swirl made him think of open switches and siding collisions. He squeezed his eyes shut tight as the General hit the turn, lunging hard left without slowing. The raiders riding behind were sent tumbling against the right of the boxcar, and the crew on the engine clung desperately to hand grips and fought to keep their feet. Knight thought it was the last of him and us, but kept a tight grip on the lever. Back behind, where's the Texas? The Texas was rushing up the last 2 miles of the line into Dalton. For the most part, an open, level piece of straightaway, and Fuller took the opportunity to scratch out a message to the recently promoted Brigadier General Danville Ledbetter at Chattanooga. Minutes later, the Texas sprinted into the station, slowing just long enough for Edward Henderson to jump off at the depot, right here. He ran along the platform and into the telegraph office, Fuller's damp, scribbled note clutched tightly in his hand. The young, thin operator stooped over the key and began tapping out a message. At about the same time, a short distance up the line, to the northwest, Andrews had ordered another halt, and Sergeant John Scott was scaling a pole to cut the telegraph wires. As instructed, Henderson sent Fuller's warning off to the authorities in Chattanooga, but he received no confirmation and had no way of knowing if it had gotten through. Bum, bum, bum. And then they take back off. They leave Henderson behind. The Texas, Fuller and the Texas leave Henderson behind. And, at some point, they lost the Catoosa as well, I think. I don't remember how they left them behind, but I think they might have. Maybe I'm wrong. The Catoosa might still be there. I don't know. Read the book. It's getting late. It's been a long, fun day. And so that's what happened here at Dalton. Big town, quick little spurt through here, and they were on their way. And now in Calhoun, I said the next stop was Tunnel Hill. Well, I was wrong, obviously. It's Dalton. Now the next stop is Tunnel Hill. So we'll see if we can get there. I know I can get there, but it's obviously closed. And we'll see if we can see the tunnel from the parking lot. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've been up there. So we shall see. See you at the next stop.